Hi guys, welcome back to the Chronic Chronicles. Today I'm joined by Savannah and we're diving into a conversation around nutrition, endometriosis, chronic symptoms, hormonal health, nervous system, gut health, and the brain, and what it looks like to start connecting the dots when your body is clearly trying to communicate something. We talk about her personal journey, what led her into this space, some key patterns that she sees, but also zoom out into a bigger conversation around how easily symptoms can be dismissed, misunderstood, or treated in isolation rather than part of a larger system. And I think that's what makes today's episode really important, because it's not just about what people are experiencing, but why they're experiencing this, and how we start approaching our health in a more informed and intentional way. As always, this conversation is to help you feel more validated in your experience, more informed about your body, and more empowered to ask deeper questions. Let's get into it. You have a really unique background blending clinical nutrition, research, and lived experience. Can you walk us through your training and how you ended up specializing in women's health?
Yeah, it's a long story, so let me make it short for you. I It was my last year of high school and I got into a car accident and it was my like sixth traumatic brain injury. And
Oh,
I was an athlete at that point. I was playing softball and the doctors were kind of like, you cannot get hit in the head anymore, essentially. So I I just kind of like lost myself a bit there and I was like, I don't know what is going on with my brain. I need to like figure this out for myself because doctors even related to the brain were not giving me answers. So
mm-hmm.
I went to school to study neuroscience and just to be quite frank, I almost fell out of that first year because the level that a traumatic brain injury impacts you on every level, it's wild. So finally started around the beginning of my second year to incorporate, more anti-inflammatory foods. I started learning about nutrition. I started learning about the type of movement that my body needed, morning sunlight, the importance of that, hydration, sleep, all of these things. So basically,
Yeah.
nutrition was at the core of like my personal rehabilitation when it came to my traumatic brain injuries. It wasn't until probably almost 10 years later that I learned that I have endometriosis. So I
Wow.
went on this journey with nutrition. Most of my endometriosis symptoms present as GI symptoms, and
Mm-hmm.
it's super fun. It's honestly very common for a lot of us. But I got really into gut health, specializing in that. After college, I did my master's degree in clinical nutrition. And
Mm-hmm.
the goal was to bring nutrition into medicine because, as I'm sure you and a lot of the listeners are aware, rarely do you walk into your doctor's office and you're like talking about food and what your
Yeah.
lifestyle looks like. So I took the MCAT. I was like prepped to go to med school. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to be
Mm-hmm.
able to physically handle the demands of medical school training. I mean, between softball and med school, those were like my major dreams that I lost
Mm-hmm.
because of chronic illness, on top of traumatic brain injury too, you know? So I ultimately was like, this is the path I'm going to take. I'm going to teach nutrition, open my private practice, work with primarily women. I mean, at that time I was working with men too, but the more that I got into it and the more that I dug deeper into my journey with endometriosis and finally getting a diagnosis, I was like, this is everything. And we'll talk about this all today, but we can't talk about endometriosis and hormones without talking about the brain, without the gut. Like it is truly so very connected. So long answer that I said was going to be short is, I had this huge personal journey with my own health and stuff that I was going through that made me really want to focus in on that clinical nutrition aspect.
Okay. Wow. First of all, I'm so proud of you for figuring out like a direction that still meshed really well with you and gave you like this sense of passion that like you have that I can just like see seeping through you on social media and right now. Also, oh my God, we're like the same person. Like, like literally, really summarized version. I had multiple concussions in high school from cheerleading. My senior year of high school, I got in a really bad car accident and got my fourth concussion, which like really bad my car went off a mountain. Like,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I'll insert a picture into this podcast of the
Yeah.
car. It was rough. Um, there was snow in Georgia, not a good mix. So my doctor was like, you cannot cheer anymore. Like, you're a flyer.
Wow.
Anytime I was going upside down for like tumbling or flying, I would like black out, like it would go black. And they're like, no, like you have a neck injury, you've had concussions, you can't do it anymore. So that got taken away from me. And going directly into college, I had to pick a new school, basically. I mean, I could have stayed, but I was like losing scholarships. Decided that I wanted to do biology and I wanted to do medicine. Had a really, really hard time in school with both like endo and like memory issues. Like, it was really hard because I was really smart in high school and I got like a really good ACT score. And I'm like, why am I failing classes? Why am I failing exams? Like, I couldn't remember things. And I also developed this weird, like, I this sounds really weird, but like I couldn't sound out words anymore.
No,
Like,
that's literally not weird. First of all, that's insane. I've never heard someone else have like a very similar journey. So
yeah,
I'm glad we crossed paths. No, I remember sitting in chemistry class, and this at my school, like Gen Chem was like the weed out class, very well known
yeah,
to be
yeah,
like, we're gonna get these people out of here. And I remember sitting there in the lecture, and I could not understand what the professor was saying. I'm like, okay, let me like open my book and try to like read some of this. Couldn't understand what it was saying.
yeah,
I was like, let me take each word from the book and like write it in my notes. I like physically, like my brain could not keep
yeah,
up.
yeah. No, literally same experience. Like, even to
Wow.
the point where I was like, why am I, this is such a basic concept. Like, I couldn't understand hydrogen bonding. I remember like Googling that so many times. I'm like, why can I not understand that? My fiance, we went to college together. He's like, I don't like, I'm explaining it to you. And I'm like, it's just not clicking. And I
Yeah.
had never like experienced that before. Like, things were easy for me prior to that. Yeah, so again, I almost failed out of college too. Like, it was really hard. And on top of that, endo, like I was in pain all the time. It was just a really bad situation. I also was primed to go to med school. Did so much clinical hours, volunteering. I took the MCAT twice. I went to grad school so that I could like beef up my resume to go to medical school
Yeah.
and decided not to go at the last minute because I was like, this is not going to work out for me. Like, I'm struggling, like even in grad school, it wasn't really the school part, it was the all the other stuff that came with it and there was no flexibility. And that's something that like I mean, this is kind of a recent in the last like 3 years, I decided not to go to med school. So it's something I've been in like therapy about it because I'm
No,
like my
yeah, it's still, it very much
it's
impacts me.
hard.
It's a lot, it's a major loss, like when you
Yeah.
identify with that for a long time and you work really hard for it. Um, I was also like right there and I'm like, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna
Hmm.
go. I'm just not gonna do
Yeah.
it. And I thankfully like had nutrition to quote quote fall back on. I think that's like why I held on to it so much. So I was like, I could
Yeah.
still like make a difference. But even now, these conversations, like when you have such a like biological background, like you truly like have that understanding of clinical experience, research experience. Like I'm not a
Yep.
physician, I'm never going to be a physician, and I absolutely struggle with that. It is a major loss. It was, gosh, what year was that I decided not to go? Probably 2020.
Hmm.
I'm going to be 30 in May, so I still there are some days where I'm like I'm really glad that I didn't go. And honestly, if I could go to med school right now, because of all I know now, I would be a fantastic physician. And I'm actually really
Hmm.
glad that I didn't back then, because I probably would have gone into like neurology or something. And I just like
Hmm.
this ultimately was my passion in life, but it's a major loss. So that's crazy. I've never heard this from anybody else. I'm like looking in
Me
the
either.
mirror.
Me either. I'm so happy like life works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
But no, I feel the exact same. It's been a major loss. It's been really, really hard. Like really, really hard. And even the people around me like don't understand it either because they're like, you had it. It was right there. Like what happened? And I'm like, I don't, you guys don't understand the amount of pain and how hard, like I truly think I would have ended up like, this sounds dramatic, but like dying sooner in life
No,
because
I always say like, I mean, warning here about what I'm about to say, but I always think like I would have, yes, probably died younger or had like suicidal ideation because I physically wasn't going to be able to keep up with my peers. I
yeah.
need massive amounts of sleep. You don't get that in med school. You know, especially in training and residency. So
Hmm.
yeah, I hear you. Want to validate
Yeah.
that. It's a very hard loss.
So, so hard. And on top of that, like that's really the one of the main reasons that I started the podcast is that I was like, I have all of this like knowledge and background and like I have a master's in science and bacteriology and like research experience. And I also am just like in the community and I'm like, I'm gonna start the podcast and try to like bridge this gap that I felt like was here. And it's been like the best thing for me, honestly. Like I've met all of
Healing.
these people. Yeah. And I'm like, I still get to do this and talk about it. And It's interesting. Now somehow I get to like still be in the room with
Yep,
these like really smart people that I think that I wanted to be around in the first place. It's interesting. But
it is. It's very, very interesting.
okay, cool. I didn't expect to. I mean, I knew we would have stuff in common, but I didn't think we'd have
Yeah.
that much in common. Okay, so how did your lived experience with endo change your understanding of women's health? I mean, you said that it took you like 10 years to get diagnosed. So when did that happen? What changed?
Yeah, so from the time of my car accident, it was about 10 years. I mean, throughout childhood, I was kind of like the sick kid. I was always in the doctor's office. I was
Hmm.
having recurrent UTIs, quote, quote, kidney infections, bladder infections, stomach issues. What's really interesting, maybe partially because of the head injuries, but I've like blacked a lot of stuff out. And I think it's kind of like a protective, like coping mechanism, but I truly have like blocked out, those really hard times in my life. I think just to protect myself. And
Hmm.
ultimately, I got into nutrition, everything I told you. I was on birth control. I was put on birth control at 14 years old, combination birth control. At
Hmm.
like 26 years old, so about 12 years later, I was like, I'm just gonna get off of it, see how my body functions. It was this time on like TikTok and social media where getting off birth control was like a trend. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It was very trendy. Somebody with a clinical background, I was like, maybe I should have like thought harder on that. But I was like, I've been on this for a long time. I didn't have a, long-term partner, wasn't sexually
Hmm.
active. And I was like, let me just, see how my body functions without it. 6 months later, boom, every single endometriosis symptom. I had
Oh
gained 30
God.
pounds. It was horrific. And then proceeded to spend the next 2 years to look for a diagnosis for endometriosis and seeing 8+ doctors. I was living in Tennessee at the time, had to fly out to San Diego, where I now live, to find my excision specialist. So,
Wow.
yeah, count math there, how many years it was truly to like figure out what I was dealing with and it being
Hmm.
endometriosis. And truly, I do credit a lot of that to having a clinical background and like just an understanding of like these symptoms are maybe not normal. And also having one of my best friends, Annie, has endometriosis, adenomyosis, and interstitial cystitis. Thank
Hmm.
God for her because she was like, I came to her and I was like, I think I have endometriosis. And she's like, yeah, it sounds like it. And the fun thing
Yeah.
about endometriosis is like, we're not physicians, right? But most women with endo can look at another woman's symptoms and be like, that's endometriosis. Like that
Hmm.
is endometriosis. So
Yeah, 100% agree. There have been so many people, like I got diagnosed in like 2017, 2018, and there have been so many friends that I've been like, keep pushing, like you
yeah,
have it. And they're like, yeah, I found out I had it. Or they got diagnosed with like IBS or something, and I'm like, there's something else going on.
no,
Like
yeah, absolutely not. I also had the IBS diagnosis for a long time. So tell me what your question was again. I went on a ramble.
No, you answered some of it, just kind of like your diagnosis story. And then also, was there any part of being
Mm.
diagnosed with endometriosis that changed your understanding of women's health?
Yeah, I mean, when you go through this, like there's no possible way that it doesn't change every aspect of your life, including like
Hmm.
how you see the world and how you understand other people. It makes you more empathetic. It makes you just take a step back in life and be a little bit more open to a lot of things. And when it came down to me kind of making the switch from gut health to women's health, ultimately, as I said in the beginning, like we cannot talk about the immune system, endometriosis,
Hmm.
brain health, gut health. All of these things are absolutely connected. And just because of social media, and that's primarily what I've used with my private practice and to educate and to start speaking on, it
Yeah.
was all women, and they were flooding my inbox, my comments like, "This is me, this is me, this is me," and I was like, I have to. This is like absolutely what I'm supposed to be doing, and making that switch to women's health and ultimately like choosing my battle for the
Hmm.
rest of my life. That's kind of what I feel like I've found honestly, like this past years. I'm like, this is it. I finally, especially with the loss of medical school, it's like I've found my absolute passion in life, and this is like what I'm going to pursue. I'm there.
Yeah.
People are going to hear us. They're going to hear our stories. They're going to know what endometriosis is, and we are going to make change. We're working on policy and legislation as well. Like I, long story short, I have found, yeah, what I'm meant to do.
No, I honestly, that gives me so much hope because I feel like I'm still kind of mourning that at times and like trying to like there are certain I mean, I'm glad with my decision. I'm happy with it, but at the same time there are days where I just like am like maybe I should just apply again and try again. And I could do it and it's fine. I'm in a different place now, but I just it's too much. Like
I know
if med school was just school, okay, sure.
a lot of
But
people
it
do it.
yeah, but like the hours, residency, like oh my gosh, the whole
And
thing,
to like
it's too much.
figure out what you're going to specialize in. Yeah,
Hmm.
honestly. And what's kind of wild to that, and hopefully to like give a little bit more hope to people listening as well. The other day, my husband, I was like sitting in the front room, my husband came out to me, and Eric Dane just passed with his battle
Yeah.
with ALS, right? And he came out to me and he was watching clips of his like Netflix specials, like his last words, and he was just talking about like his learnings throughout his life. He says in part of that, like you have to find something that you love doing, like not just like you like doing that, you love doing it, you are excited to wake up every single day.
Yeah.
And my husband walks out to me and he was like, you've literally found that. Like you are
Mhm.
excited to wake up every single day. And that is my silver lining with all of this because endometriosis is like the bane of my existence. And somehow it has brought me a lot of positives and a lot of great
Yeah.
women and connections. So,
I love that.
yeah.
Yay. So to go a little bit more into the science of endo, I mean, we've touched on that endo is really honestly like a complex full body system. Like it
Mhm.
involves every single body system, even though still somehow people say that it's a period disorder and it's taboo and all that stuff. So what does, I guess I should backtrack. We have we, as in the world, has recently started saying that endometriosis is an inflammatory condition, which is something that people with endo have been saying for a long time. But now we're actually getting like recognition for that. What does chronic inflammation actually mean?
Yeah. And I mean, chronic inflammation is at the center of
Hmm.
endometriosis, we should say. But it's true. It's like such like multifactorial disease. And like that's what this is too. I mean, yes, we want to call this an inflammatory full body condition, but this is a disease. It's been found
Hmm.
in multiple organ systems throughout the body, the brain, the lungs, like just wild, right? So when
Yeah.
it comes down to like what or the why, and I say the why, but as much as we can possibly know about endo because it's also significantly under researched and
Yeah.
underfunded, it is impacted by the immune system. So when it comes to just like general and chronic inflammation, immune cells being activated. So things like mast cells, macrophages, right? Fun
Hmm.
biology terms that we can actually use. I remember sitting in biology being like, when am I ever going to use this? I'm like, wow, this is my whole life now.
Yeah.
And then having pro-inflammatory cytokines, for example. So these compounds that are consistently releasing inflammatory, like just when you're bloated, when you're like fully feeling like a puffer fish, that is what's happening here. Those are those
Mhm.
mast cells, the immune cells being activated, these cytokines being activated, oxidative stress. So having something that is consistently creating or honestly not facilitating an environment for proper antioxidants to thrive. And that's where, nutrition can come into that piece because we can, and we do have control over some of that. We can, eat an anti-inflammatory diet. We can focus on
Hmm.
antioxidants with our food. And then we have that neurological component too. And that is the pain. That is a whole deeper side of the conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm actually speaking at EndoFound's Patient Day in March, and the whole theme of the conference is it being a neuroinflammatory disease. So we'll learn more
Wow.
about, the side of things that is more the nervous system regulation side of things. And that is
Yeah.
wild to me as somebody who has a background in neuroscience because in no way does our stress cause endometriosis, right? But there's something to be said about epigenetics and
Hmm.
the trauma that's happened throughout our family. And you can kind of like cross this back through multiple women who have endometriosis. So yes, overall,
Yeah.
multifactorial, immune related, pro-inflammatory disease.
Okay. Yeah. And I know, like, speaking on kind of like trauma and epigenetics and all of that stuff too. There have been, I mean, there have been a couple studies, not
Mhm.
necessarily related to endometriosis, but like chronic conditions in general, autoimmune diseases, where if you have like childhood trauma that you can end up having, or you have a greater chance of getting autoimmune diseases, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I just find that so interesting because I'm
Yeah.
like, hmm,
You're like, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's crazy because
yeah,
like we can't ever say we still don't know the cause for this. And
yeah,
honestly, I think we kind of know the quote like cause. It is all of these things combined that
yeah, there's a
creates this
lot.
environment. But to me, epigenetics is fascinating, and there's absolutely something to be said about how our nervous system like essentially keeps a score and how different genes are essentially turned on in our body as
Yeah,
well.
for sure. Also going back to eating an anti-inflammatory diet, I want to ask you a question about that too. So here's the thing. I've always wondered, like, what if you eat a per which I don't because I really, really struggle with eating an anti-inflammatory diet. I struggle with it. But if you eat a perfect anti-inflammatory diet and you do all of these things perfectly, like it's still not gonna take away all of your endo symptoms. So, and like say that you have all of these inflammatory things turned on and you're eating an anti-inflammatory diet. Is this gonna like ever take you back to baseline, or is there like a way to even it out somehow? Or is it just kind of like helping? You know, it's not hurting it as much.
I got to a point in my career, probably honestly in the last year,
Hmm.
and my whole business and my whole private practice has been working in, clinical nutrition and helping women
Yeah.
with their eating. I got to a point where most of my clientele is now women with endometriosis, PCOS, Hashimoto's, autoimmunity, whatever. Nutrition will only go so far. And that
Hmm.
pains me to say because that's what I do, right? But there comes a point, especially let's say we have a woman with endometriosis and she's done everything right. I hope this validates people listening because my goodness, there are so many women out there who do everything right. By
Yeah.
the way, it's a full-time job just to try to take care of yourself with this.
Yeah.
And we get to a point where I'm like, I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't help you find an excision specialist. Like you need to get this out
Yeah.
of you as much as we possibly can. But what I will say about that, well, there's two sides of the coin here. Women with endometriosis, PCOS, autoimmunity have significantly higher rates of experiencing disordered eating and eating disorders
Hmm.
because when you are trying all these different diets and different things, okay, it's very, very restrictive, right? So I have a very different approach than probably most dietitians and nutritionists that you'll see online because it's never helpful just we have lost so much in our lives. We can't just keep taking away. My approach is
Yeah.
always like, what can we focus on adding in? Honestly, I don't even tell people to take things away at first. It is a progression over
Hmm.
time. What can we add in? If you're having like spaghetti and it's literally just like pasta and meatballs and sauce, can we add in like some spinach to the sauce? It's that simple,
Yeah.
one little thing. And a lot of clients are like, that's what I hired you for? Like, I'm like, no, I know.
No, but I
But
like
if
that.
you figure out every week, like, can I add one thing in over 52
Hmm.
weeks in a year, you're going to have a completely different way of eating, right? So that's important. I personally believe that, I mean, especially going back to the oxidative stress side of things and
Hmm.
needing antioxidants in your diet, I mean, I think that it is a general baseline for most people. Even if you don't have endometriosis, I mean, eating whole foods, more plant forward, quality protein, it's focusing on longevity for your health too, a sustainable approach
Yeah.
to helping you live longer and have a healthy life longer. So, it's this, I know this is a huge conversation when it comes to this, but I just refuse to cause more restriction for women who've already like lost so much in their life.
Yeah, I actually love that approach, and it's really hard to find. Like it's really, really hard to find. So I actually saw a dietitian like 2 years ago maybe, and that was like my first dietitian ever, and she essentially yeah, like told me to cut out a whole bunch of stuff and I like really, really struggled with it. I was like, I kind of grew up a picky eater. Like it's hard for me to like try to just basically take out my whole. She's like, okay, no more gluten, no more dairy, no more sugar, no more like all. It was like a whole bunch of like no's. And I was just like, okay. And the thing that really hurt me the most, I was like, okay, is there any way that I can take all of this out but still have my morning coffee, like the way that I want to drink my morning coffee, which at the time was a whole milk mocha, but the mocha was like a chocolate protein powder. And she was
Mhm.
like, well, I like the protein, but like there's a lot of sugar in the protein powder and whole milk is no. And I understood where she was coming from, but I literally just like broke down and I was like, I can't see you anymore. Like it's not worth it. I'm like, that's the one thing that makes me happy is
Yeah.
this like morning coffee. And
Yeah.
she could not fathom that I like couldn't give it up to try to be healthier. And I was like, I want to, but I was like, listen, I like the only way that I can describe this to you is that's like the thing that I live for right now. Like I seriously, and she thought that was like crazy. And I'm like, I do sound crazy. Like that is stupid in
No.
retrospect, but in reality, when you like break it down, I'm in so much pain every day. And like that's the one thing that I can like look forward to in the morning to like get out of bed, even though I'm in pain and go have this like good coffee.
One thing. No, I think that what, not trying to toot my own horn here, but like what kind
Yeah.
of sets me aside is because I've lived it. I've gone through it myself and it's taken me, I mean, years of education to eat how I eat now. Like it's been years, and I don't say that to discourage anybody. It's not about like an end goal. When it comes to nutrition, it does kind of have to become your baseline, but it takes years. Like it's
Yeah.
probably taken me 10 years to like get to the point that I'm at now with nutrition and all
Hmm.
the learnings and staying on research and figuring it out. Also, there's a whole separate conversation about accessibility. Not everybody can walk into a Whole Foods and buy all organic,
Yeah.
food. I mean, we have to meet people where they're at. And I'm really sorry that you went through that. I mean, truly, what I try to focus on, and any provider that you go to should be trauma informed. That is what this is. Like, we're dealing with a traumatic experience. We've like
Yeah.
lost a lot in our lives, and we do find comfort in food. Part of our lives is nutrition, food. Maybe it was for me, I'm half Hispanic, I'm half Mexican, and we grew up in the kitchen with my grandma cooking food, dancing to music. Like food is
Hmm.
happiness to me, right? And it's not everybody may have that experience, but the point being, like, food is emotional for us. And if
Hmm.
that is something that you found happiness in, I refuse to take people's coffee away. Like it is a morning ritual, and it's like something that
Hmm.
a lot of people look forward to. Maybe over time, the approach that could have been taken was do it. We're going to work on all these other areas. You keep having that morning coffee. Maybe over time we
Yeah.
can get it switched to an almond milk or something. Like right now, we're gonna
Yeah.
have let you have that, and we're gonna work on these areas, and let's see what happens over the time.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I have like slowly just kind of myself worked in I've kind of figured out your approach like like on my
Mhm.
own at this
Okay.
point, like just reading and like being on social media and being like, okay, this is like a healthier way, like a more sustainable way to do that. Because my personality, I'm like, I'm so stubborn. Like, why can't it was frustrating to me that I feel like I can like be headstrong about everything else in my life, not nutrition. Like it was such a, I couldn't do the whole cold turkey switch it out. And that was like really frustrating for me because I'm like, why? Like this shouldn't be this hard. But it's something that like, yeah, has taken a long time. And I've started, like you said, just like adding vegetables in or adding, like seeds, chia seeds, like stuff, like just trying to add more things in and still having the things that I want. And now I've at least gotten to the point where I'm not having like a mocha every day. I'm having like a cappuccino. So it's like
Yeah,
not
you're playing
sugar,
around.
like it's a little bit better. And hopefully I'll get to the point where I use a milk alternative. But like that took like months though for me to even
Yeah.
just like the taste of coffee without sugar.
Yep. It is a, I mean, you have to eat a food like 7 times to even like start to enjoy it, right? So
Yeah.
it's such a process. We have to educate on how in-depth and emotional nutrition is. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
people don't realize that. Also, big tip for people really quickly, frozen fruits and vegetables are freaking amazing. People like stay away from them, and I don't know
Yeah.
why. I think there's some fear around it. We literally like harvest frozen vegetables. You essentially take it off the plant and it's frozen in time. Like all the nutrients are frozen right then and
Ooh.
there. Even when you walk into a store and you get fresh produce, how long has it been already like taken
Hmm.
off the vine, right? So it's already progressively lost nutrients. I think it's like already 40% of the nutrients have been lost from sitting on
Wow.
the shelf like that, or, out on a produce stand. So, utilizing these little tools, not to mention if you buy like an avocado, for example, it's bad in 2 days after you bought it. You're like, how is this bad? I just bought it. And then,
Yeah.
there's that aspect of food waste. So we have so many frozen vegetables in our freezer. And when we're making something, I'm like, let me just toss in some frozen vegetables here. It's
Yeah.
So
Oh my God. You know what I discovered recently that I was like, I had no idea this existed is frozen ginger and frozen garlic, like in little, I specifically can only find them at like Trader Joe's or like
yeah.
they have them at Whole Foods too, but it's like in little teaspoon squares of
Yep.
like frozen ginger and garlic. And I'm like, this is so easy. I can, anytime we're making like anything Asian, I'm like, let me just throw some ginger in
Throw some in
there.
there. Yeah, it's
Perfect.
amazing. It's like it doesn't go as bad as quickly. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So big tip to utilize frozen when you can.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good tip. And typically, well, I mean, sometimes frozen vegetables are kind of expensive, but like I'll buy vegetables and yeah, food waste is bad. I buy like a
Yeah.
thing of spinach and I'm like, okay, it's bad, but you can just
Yeah.
freeze it too.
The average household wastes like 1,000 pounds of food a year. It's, I mean, we're
Oh
consistently
my
throwing
God.
food away, right? So it's like, yeah, I mean, and yeah, some of them can be expensive, but I'm like, let me buy this bag of like green peas and it's like
Hmm.
99 cents or it's like
Yeah.
$2, whatever. And it, you know that you're going to use it, right? So, adding it in where you can.
Question on that really quick. Do you think that like frozen, I think I know the answer to this, but just curious. If I were to buy like frozen or canned, which is better?
I mean, the answer is always going to come down to, well, we do have a component of like it being frozen in time, right? The nutrients
Yeah.
being frozen. Um, Both are more accessible, in my opinion, than fresh produce for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So if canned is what's easier for you, again, like we're focusing on like what can we do here? What can we add in?
Yeah.
If like a can of green peas is going to be easiest for you and mentally it's helpful, cool. Grab it,
Yeah.
start putting it where you can.
Yeah.
But always look at the ingredients again when you can. If you have the accessibility for it, we're just looking for ensuring that whatever is in the can or whatever it is you're buying is like truly just that ingredient. If it's green beans, making sure it's just green beans, trying to not have in a bunch of like additives there is what's going
Yeah.
to be the most important.
Yeah. Okay, another question. I didn't plan on asking you these, but we're on this topic, so I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm curious. What is considered a whole food? Because I have also been kind of confused about this, and social media is like kind of wishy-washy. I thought that a whole food was just like literally one ingredient, but is that true? Like, can you, like, is milk considered a whole food even though there's technically sugar in it?
So, well, a lot of foods have sugar technically. Like if there's like any type of carb or like, lactase
Yeah.
essentially like a dairy sugar. But when I think about like whole foods, anti-inflammatory foods, I'm focusing on foods that are going to provide the most nutrients, the most
Hmm.
antioxidants, the most anti-inflammatory impacts here. And honestly, it looks a little bit different for everybody. That's what's challenging here. And social media like does not help people's confusion. But for most of us we're speaking about chronic illness, so that's what I'm going to speak to, not like the
Hmm.
general population who may not have it, though most of America is sick these days. We want to try to minimize really, really processed foods. So a lot of additives, a lot of added sugars, excuse me, processed meats, and there's a rule that you probably see a lot on social media is like sticking to the outside of like the supermarket or
Yeah.
the store because that's where like the fresh produce is, protein options. And that's what when we start to think like whole foods, think foods that are essentially not processed, which is hard because a lot of them are these days,
Yeah.
and just building like anti-inflammatory, like balanced plates and meals, we want protein that's going to be essentially, lean. We want a little bit of fat there too. We can, if you're somebody who is vegan, you can go for like tofu, tempeh. There's a lot of options for
Hmm.
proteins there. A healthy carbohydrate. So rather than like a side of chips, for example, aim for quinoa, rice, a sweet potato. Like there are really quality sources of carbohydrates, and then fiber, that being vegetables, fruit,
Yeah.
avocado, things like that. So, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. I would say, like, when trying to stick to a whole food diet, it can just get a little bit difficult because I think my brain has a hard time because I'm like, oh, when I think whole food, I think like one ingredient, like an apple is a whole food. But like then you get into, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of an example. Like Greek yogurt. Like is
Mhm.
that a whole food? Because I mean, I guess it depends on which brand, but
Yeah, and like
sometimes there's
ingredient,
like,
right? And if it
yeah.
bothers you, when I said earlier that it's different for everybody, so like women with PCOS, for example, dairy is typically a trigger for them. Gluten
Hmm.
sometimes, not always. So I'm not gonna like get a woman with PCOS and be like, you have to cut out gluten and dairy. We're gonna be like,
Yeah.
tell me throughout your life, like, have you ever noticed that things like whole milk or Greek yogurt have upset your stomach? It's really varied per person because something like a yogurt, solid Greek yogurt with no added sugar can be a really good source of probiotics for a lot of people. And if
Yeah.
it's not a trigger for you, it may not be like pro-inflammatory necessarily. Everybody's bodies are so different and we have such
Yeah.
bio-individuality. Like that's where this gets confusing. For many of us with autoimmunity, endo PCOS, gluten and dairy tend to be the first, and sugars because those are going to cause more inflammation in the body. It's harder to
Hmm.
break down. You have this built-in detox system in the body. Okay, you don't need teas and supplements. You have a liver and two kidneys, and that has to process and cleanse and detox your body. But when we're
Yeah.
overwhelming the system with highly processed ingredients, that makes it really hard for your body to like keep in true nutrients and expel the rest. That's where we start talking about things like leaky gut, which we all have to some extent. But essentially, if we're eating these highly processed foods, we're going to create that oxidative stress in the body. It's going to rip open the gut lining and it's going to create chronic
Yeah.
systemic inflammation throughout the body.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about the gut. Why do so many of us with endo have gut problems?
Yeah, so everything we've mentioned, whether it's like immune cells,
Yeah.
cytokines, the oxidative stress, that doesn't stay in one location. Everything is connected. I mean, when we're talking about going to medical school, right? And we would have specialized in one of these organ systems,
Yeah.
which I get, we do need specialists, but
Yeah, but
it's
the whole
all
thing is kind of
connected.
crazy. It's all connected.
It
Like
is,
even now you get sent to a specialist and you're like, "Do you not talk? Like,
yeah.
do you not?"
Do you not like talk about anything other than this one thing? No, it's
Yeah.
truly all connected, and especially with something like endo. So, a lot of us struggle with it. It is a full body disease. It's been found everywhere, but a lot of women find it's found in their intestines. Mine was deeply infiltrating my intestines, adhering my bladder to my uterus and in my rectum, hence GI
Yeah.
symptoms, right? So it's not going to stay localized to that area because though anatomy images and graphics make it seem like everything is so far apart in our body, it's literally all together. Like our
Yeah.
intestines, and bladder and uterus and ovaries, like it's just they're touching each other. They're literally always together. So if you're
Hmm.
having chronic inflammation within the bladder and the uterus and endometriosis is growing on that and it is literally releasing inflammatory cytokines, prostaglandins, it's not going to just stay there. It's going to get it. It's going to touch the intestines. That's going to
Hmm.
cause inflammation there. It gets throughout the bloodstream. Like it just creates
Yeah.
chronic systemic inflammation literally throughout the body. And that's what I experienced. I mean, I look back at pictures and it's coming from someone who does everything right. This is what I do right for my life. I put on so much weight. I looked like a balloon. It didn't
Hmm.
matter how healthy I ate. If I ate out of my like, plant forward as much as I possibly could have, I felt significantly worse, but it didn't matter. I felt and looked like a blowfish. Like everything was just so
Yeah, I
inflamed
feel that.
constantly.
I
Yeah.
feel that. I know that's how I've really been struggling for the past, I mean, forever, but like really the past 3 to 4 years. I got diagnosed with PCOS like
Mhm.
way after endo. So, like 3 or 4 years ago, got the PCOS diagnosis. And pretty much since then, it's been hell. Like, I have gained almost 55 pounds.
Mhm.
Insane. And I've like gone to the doctor about this so many times. I even work with a naturopath now, and we've tried so many supplements. We've tried dietary changes. I go on walks every day. I do like Pilates all the time because low impact, because I can't do like if I'm doing high impact or running, it triggers endo symptoms. Like it's just a nightmare. And I like still keep gaining weight. That I also want to talk to you about that too, because I saw recently that you were talking about a GLP. That's something that my doctor has suggested for the past like year and a half, and I've just been like, I'm scared. Like I don't know what that's gonna do. I also have this like headstrong mentality that I'm like, I can just do it myself. But I feel like I've been trying for so long that obviously it's just not working. Like there's something else that needs to happen. And then I have like the endo belly that just comes out of nowhere. Like I'm sleeping, I'll wake up with endo belly. And I'm like, how is this even possible? Like it doesn't feel it's really hard because I like work with a dietitian and she's like, "Well, do you feel symptoms after this food?" And I'm like, "I feel symptoms after water. Like I can't figure it out." So how do you feel about all that? Like how has the GLP helped?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be like a walking pharmacy. I will absolutely say this is not medical advice. Always talk to your
Right.
providers, all of that, right? So, this is something that my surgeon and I talked about following
Hmm.
surgery. The thing with endometriosis, and the more that I've learned, and I connect with my doctor. We're actually having an event in San Diego, and she's going to come speak at it. And I've, had the opportunity to get closer and learn from her as well on this side of things. And I'm super grateful for that. But
Yeah.
they go in, these excision doctors, and they remove as much endo as they can find. And it's all these different colors, right? And the thing that I'm learning is like, well, a lot of it can be removed. It's not to say that like all of it is, and there's all these
Yeah.
places in the body that we just don't know. And even when you have excision, I mean, for me, it changed my life. I woke up and my GI symptoms were like gone. I literally was like, the pain
Wow.
of surgery didn't compare to the pain I was living in on like a day-to-day basis, right? All this to say, many women get surgery and it may help their symptoms, but the inflammation doesn't necessarily go away because we're still
Yeah.
dealing with this. I was like, I'm so tired. That's what I got to. I got to where I'm like, I'm so tired of doing everything right. I've done all the movements. I've switched on my workouts. Like you said, I eat a quote perfect diet, the best quality ingredients I can find. I'm running myself into debt, just trying to, take care of myself, go to acupuncture,
Yeah.
pelvic floor physical therapy, all these things. Like I just want
Yeah.
to feel physically better. I'm like, fuck it. Literally, fuck it. I'm going to try it. I work in clinical research and I've studied multiple drugs for a long time. Again, I personally don't want to be like a walking pharmacy, but I'm like, if this thing helps me, and I've known that
Hmm.
like these aren't new, like Ozempic came out and people lost their minds because we're talking about weight. And anytime we're talking about weight, nope, you're wrong for trying it. Like these are not just useful for helping
Yeah.
people lose weight. It really, there's a lot of research coming out about how it helps inflammation specifically. What's hard about
Hmm.
GLP-1s right now, they're being used off label for PCOS and endometriosis because we don't have funding for these to research these areas. So,
Yeah.
yes, this is something that my doctor and I talked about. She uses trizepatide specifically a lot in her patients, and it changed my life between excision and that. It helped me, fully relieve myself of like the inflammation. It's a very, very small dose, like the microdose, and
Yeah.
I just try to equip women with all the research that I possibly can. Do your research, talk to your doctor, and ultimately decide like if that's something that's right for you and your treatment.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that. I think that for a long time, I've just kind of been like, I almost have like aversions to medication now because like I did Orlissa, I did like all of these medications that just have had bad side effects on me. But like that's part of endo, unfortunately, is just kind of like trial and error. And and the other thing is as well is like my family is like, okay, well, do you want to be on a GLP because you want to lose weight? Is that the situation? And I'm like, well, partially, yes.
Mhm.
Se but secondarily, my doctor is telling me that I have insulin resistance because of PCOS now, and if I don't get this figured out, I'm at risk for type 2 diabetes. That like
Mhm.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
It's like it just keeps getting worse and worse, and I feel the
Yeah.
same way. Like I'm going into debt from trying to keep up with everything, and like it's just a nightmare. Endo.
Yeah. And this is like something that there's this like weird environment created within the world of chronic illness and endo of like, oh well, I was able to handle my symptoms all naturally. I'm like, I freaking love that for you. I'm so happy for you.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, that's not what has worked for me and my
Yeah.
body. And like something that is like such a challenging disease to live with, like we as women have to support each other in what works for us. There
Yeah.
needs to be no judgment. If you don't want to try something, great, don't. But
Yeah.
some women do, and they're finding it's helpful. It's not like we're telling people like to go get some random thing or off the black market. Like these are things that you should be
Yeah.
talking to your doctor about. Like these are things that you should, absolutely be figuring out for your case. But I'm just a firm believer in like we we need to be more open-minded to each other and be more supportive because this is a really challenging disease.
Yeah. Again, it's not like I could go on a tangent about even I feel like sometimes in the community there are almost like a sense of like gatekeeping and it's like, well, I'm not telling people to go try these things themselves, but I am telling people what worked for me and then allowing you to go do your own research and talk to your doctor about it and see if it's right for you. Because this like sense of like being silent and not talking about it is what got us here in the well, not really, but like
No,
kind of
yeah,
what
and
got us here in the first
contribute.
place is like being silent as women and being like, yeah, it's fine. We'll just suffer in silence for 10 years and that's okay. Like,
Right. And what am I supposed to do? Like, as I'm a clinical nutritionist, so what
yeah.
I'm supposed to pretend like, oh, I got excision. It changed my life. It helped me. But now I eat an anti-inflammatory diet, and that's how I lost all the inflammation. Like that would be lying. I would be lying to women if I stood on my platform on stages talking, and I'm like, this is all because
Yeah.
did everything all quote quote naturally. Like I just yes, it's about sharing my experience with women, and if they choose to have those conversations with their doctors, then that's great.
Yeah. Love that. Thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that. I know a lot of people are kind of like apprehensive of talking about it or not talking about it, and I think that it's important for the community to hear
Yeah.
more.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
okay, I'm gonna do a couple of rapid fire questions for you. So, what's a myth about endo nutrition that needs to die?
I mean, sorry. Like how can I say this like nicely? I mean, ultimately, let me just frame it in the sense of like we have to be trauma informed and we have to
Hmm.
be less restrictive. I don't mean like telling women like just eat whatever you want, but like we have to change the approach. I know it's
Hmm.
not really like a myth, but I think what have seen from this space and in nutrition specifically is it is like you have to be so regimented and perfect and like restrict all these things. Like that is a myth. My personal belief is like we have to focus on 70-30 or 80-20, meaning 70 or 80% of the time you're trying to eat anti-inflammatory, you're
Yeah.
focusing on quality sleep, hydration, moving your body where you can. But the brain, we as humans we're social beings, and
Yeah.
part of our health is absolutely mental health and social health, so interacting with friends and family, meaning you're gonna go to some kid's birthday party, maybe your cousins or something, and you're gonna have a piece of like a cake or something, or like the holidays come and you want to go to dinner with your family and you're eating things that aren't typically part of your routine. Like we have to stop trying to make each other be perfect. Like
Yeah.
we have to bring the humanity back to this and stop making us feel like if we're not like 100% perfect all the time that we are wrong. So
Yes, love. Okay, if somebody says you just need to cut gluten and dairy, what do you say to that?
depends on you and who you are. I mean, when I work with somebody one-on-one, I go fully into that client's medical
Hmm.
history, their personal medical history, their family medical history. Like, I'm like, okay, like red meat's a great example for that. I'm like, I'm not against people necessarily like eating red meat. And a lot of people with endo are like, I feel worse when I eat red meat. And I'm like, great. If that is something you notice doesn't work for you in your body, then you don't have to add it into your diet, right? Or lifestyle, because I don't love the word diet either. But if we are focusing on you, your background, your family background, like I have celiac disease, and pretty much every woman in my family has a struggle with gluten.
Yeah.
Probably we're going to do some tests and figure out through trial and error if gluten is something that you need. Most of the time, like I said earlier, those of us with autoimmunity and PCOS are going to benefit from, eating as little gluten, dairy, processed foods, processed or added sugars as we can.
Yeah.
We have to find balance.
How do you feel about like an elimination diet situation?
Oh, how much time do we have? I've had women come to me. They're like, my doctor put me on low FODMAP. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, how long ago was that? How many weeks ago was that? Oh, that was 10 years ago.
Oh,
I'm sorry, wait, what? And it's not their fault. It's being told something by their provider and they weren't like fully educated on it. Like
yeah.
low FODMAP or these diets are meant to help us figure out what your triggers are, and they're meant to be short term. That's what people don't get fully educated on. So I
Hmm.
just always talk about low FODMAP because it's the one that most people are aware of. But
Yeah.
you remove foods that are high in FODMAPs, which are essentially like fermentable oligosaccharide, like long words for carbohydrates that are hard for the body to digest, and essentially causing more bloating, distension, all of that. And then we
Yeah.
slowly over, 4 to 6 weeks, add in a food like, okay, like onions, garlic are typically triggers for this. We're going to remove those for a short period of time. Let's add in garlic back this week. What happens? What happens in your
Hmm.
body? Nothing. Okay, great. We're gonna be able to add that in. The next week we try to add in onions. Nope. Boom. All my symptoms come back. That's the purpose of an elimination diet is we're figuring
Okay.
out that like a certain food may be a trigger for you in your body. And again, it's different for every single person.
Yeah.
So we have to do the trial and error.
Yeah. Interesting. You know what? You know what I'm realizing is that I've never tried to cut out garlic or onions, and I eat garlic and onions in like every single meal. I wonder if that's like something.
FODMAPs are so SIBO is very,
Yeah.
very common and very current in women with endo and PCOS that I'm seeing more and more now. And higher FODMAP foods and more fermentable foods, which sucks because you research gut health and you're like, I'm supposed to eat these fermented foods. It's gonna help
Yeah.
my gut. And it tends to backfire for us because it's fueling this like SIBO and this inflammation
Hmm.
distension. So yeah, we have to be really, really careful with certain foods. And typically, FODMAP is the one I do sometimes go to. And I don't always have to do the full-blown elimination diet, by the way. Like you're like, okay, maybe I can play around with I'm gonna play around with garlic for the next couple of weeks and see how I feel about
Yeah.
not including it that often. That's still something that can be really useful and full of value here is that you don't necessarily have to put yourself through hell to figure out that like a certain food may be a trigger for you.
Yeah. Got it. Last question for you. Loaded question. What frustrates you the most about how endo is currently treated?
Oh gosh. I actually, this may be like not what you would expect me to say, but I'm finding recently, when I say recently, I mean like quite literally the last couple of weeks, a lot of hope in this space. And I think it's because of what I do and, the women that I'm friends with in this space as well. But endometriosis is being talked about. Like
Yeah.
it is being talked about publicly. Women's health is starting to be talked about. I mean, there is so much work to be done here, but the fact that we're finally having this in conversations like gives me hope.
Yeah.
The fact that, I mean, in a couple of weeks we'll be standing in Washington, D.C., in Capitol Hill, in these congressional hearings about endo and adenomyosis. I mean, finally, for the first time in a long time, have hope. And while there are some ups and downs to this community, my experience personally has been really great. I mean, women want to come together, they want to just have community with people who understand it.
Mhm.
So I'm just generally really hopeful for the future and what's going to come for hopefully massive changes with endometriosis.
Yay. I love that you're seeing that too. I think that once we start to be more involved in the community too, you start to see that it's not so lonely. Like there's a lot of people talking about it and a lot of people that are going through it and a lot of commonalities between people. And I mean, I think that that's awesome. So
Yeah, we
thank
just have to
you.
keep coming together, It's important
Yeah.
to, I think endometriosis, the like number one thing I've taken from it is like the understanding of how much women need other women and then we need women
Oh yeah.
supporting other women. And I think I haven't had much of that in my life coming from competitive sports, a competitive major, trying to get into med school. Everything in my
Yep.
life has been like me against somebody else, right? And
Hmm.
endometriosis has been me against me and
Hmm.
trying to figure this out, me against my own body. And other women are experiencing this. So to come together, if all we can do is have community and finally not feel alone, like I also take that as a win.
Before we wrap up today's episode, I do want to share something that feels very aligned with today's episode. Samine Health is a science backed women's health company focused on hormonal balance and cycle support. Their formulations are designed to work with your cycle, not just override it, using clinically studied ingredients that support inflammation, cramping, mood, and hormone regulation. What I appreciate most is that they're not just promising miracle cures, they're focused on research driven support for real symptoms, the kind of symptoms that so many of us live with every single month. If you're working on reconnecting with your cycle, supporting ovulation, or just feeling more in tune with your body, I definitely recommend checking them out. You can head to saminehealth.com to learn more, and you can use code Chronic Chronicles for a discount. And I'll have the link in the show notes as well. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. It went by so fast.
I
We're
know. I'm
done.
like, there's so much we can like talk about. We didn't even get into like the estrogen,
I
growth hormone.
know.
I mean, there's so much we can talk about. So
I know. Really quick before we end, do you want to let people know how they can find you on social media?
yeah, my name is my like very long name, unfortunately. It's Savannah Regensburger on Instagram. And then TikTok is Sav Regensburger, SAV. So I'm
Perfect.
primarily posting, educating over the month of March. I think this is probably going to be said posted towards the end of March, but
Hmm.
definitely come on over to my page, the community. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of places to connect with other women if you're feeling alone and struggling.
Yay. I'll also put that in the show notes so people can just click on it too. But thank you so much. This was
Thank
so
you.
fun.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yay. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I'm really grateful to Savannah for sharing her perspective and for being part of this conversation, because these are the kinds of discussions that remind us that our symptoms are not random and they're really not something that we should have to live with without answers. If this episode resonated with you, I would love if you shared it with someone who might need to hear it, whether that's a friend, a partner, or even a provider. As always, if you want more conversations like this, make sure you're following along on Instagram at Chronic Chronicles Pod and subscribe to wherever you're listening. I'll talk to you next week.